I ask myself, how can a foreign policy that is both substantive and nimble be designed and implemented when Twitter is faster than the CIA and sometimes more accurate? Also, how can communication-based public diplomacy be conducted when there is so much pressure to respond at high speed and make yourself heard amongst a cacophony of voices? Is it the business of a nation's embassy to be effective on social media or to be effective on official diplomacy? The answer is more complicated than it may seem, because diplomacy and media, no strangers to each other, are becoming entwined in new ways. Publics expect to be spoken to, and they expect to be heard. This makes listening one of the most underrated of diplomatic skills, exceptionally important. If diplomats fail to listen, they will miss important voices, many of them belonging to non-state actors. In Egypt in 2011, the Facebook page of We Are All Khalid Seib provided real-time insights into the movement that was reshaping Egypt. Intelligence services have come to recognize the value of monitoring online products of al-Qaeda and its siblings. On a more benign level, listening to global publics can provide invaluable insights about social and political attitudes, which can allow diplomats to more precisely evaluate the environments in which they work. The content on Sina Weibo provides useful information about trends in China, and similar examples abound. Now, pulling together all these many factors, should we be optimistic or pessimistic about the future of diplomacy? The great equalizer effect of new communication technologies can bring unprecedented closeness to the individual citizen's relationship to her or his state, and therefore enhances the work of diplomats who champion democracy, human rights, and related ideals. As for speed, a key element of real-time diplomacy, there is no going back to the day when a president could go sailing and feel confident that with the wind behind him, he could outpace the news cycle. Instead, we must recognize that a tweet from an embassy can precipitate a political crisis, and a YouTube video can ignite violent mobs. Real-time diplomacy must be developed with full recognition of such new realities. I remain optimistic about this new diplomatic environment because I have faith in the positive effects of broader dissemination of information to broader publics. Diplomats will gradually adjust to the newest media forms, just as they did to the advent of television. Well, I think NGOs have already proved that they are using social media and other internet-based media greatly to their advantage. One organization that comes to mind is Doctors Without Borders, who are able to provide content using their website, provide video and statistics and that sort of thing, that news organizations and individuals may take. And in other words, no longer does Doctors Without Borders have to rely on the BBC covering a particular case. They can get that information out on their own, perhaps not to as large an audience, but if they make enough noise, presumably the BBC and others will pick it up. So I think getting back to that whole issue of empowerment, this is a tool for NGOs and others to use that is really unprecedented, and letting you reach out directly to the public. And people who are interested in what you're doing now know to look for you online, to look for your product. So you don't have to sit around any longer saying, if only we could get the news media to cover this. You can generate on your own, and that's really important. Facebook, for example, trains governments and individual political leaders on how to use it within I don't know what the FCO does exactly, but I know at the U.S. State Department, one of Hillary Clinton's senior aides was a gentleman named Alec Ross, who had worked on social media in the Obama 2008 campaign, came over to work for her, and really, with her firmly behind it, got into this idea of 21st century statecraft, which includes the use of social media. And there is training for State Department employees, and they also provide what was being done under Ross's leadership were tech workshops around the world as part of U.S. public diplomacy. So not only were U.S. diplomats being trained, but also people elsewhere in the world knowing that even if they don't have pervasive technology, newest technology at the moment, they will be getting there soon. So it has been during the past 4 years, I think, pretty fully integrated within the U.S. Foreign Service operation.
Do you think it will, to some extent, take over from traditional diplomacy?
No, not anytime soon. Anyway, it's still kind of anarchic, and that's which I guess regular diplomacy is too sometimes. But it's but I think that there's still a sense of people wanting to retain a fair amount of control, of the actual policymakers wanting to retain control, and they'll say, okay, we'll listen, we'll communicate, but when it gets right down to it, our policy toward Russia or toward Egypt or toward South Africa or whatever is going to be determined not by some sort of democratic social media confluence, but rather by us.